Hello everybody and welcome. We are Nim here with you once again with another level tutorial for Unreal Tournament 2004. This video is going to be kind of an addendum to the previous video where we created our skybox and we talked a little bit about lighting. And I think in this video we're just going to go over some finer points of lighting and try really to just improve the overall look of this space just through changing a little bit of geometry and moving some lights around. And we'll even add some effects like adding coronas to our light sources. So let's go ahead and get started. I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and eliminate this sort of strange shadow here where we get the bright highlight of the sun in the middle of a shadow that is created by the ambient light of these two skylights. So what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to go to a bigger grid size. And we're going to go ahead and select, in our front view, we're going to select both of these brushes, and we're going to go into vertex editing mode. And we're going to widen these so that they're twice as big. It'll effectively be a square. And I'm going to turn on real-time previews like we do in every video. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. I'm going to stretch it in the opposite direction. So we'll go over here to our front view and we will select both of our brushes and then go to our vertex editing tool and stretch these out. Now the lights, the spotlights that we had up here for our ambient skylight, we're going to center these, and we're also going to bring them down a bit. So like somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle right there I think is good. And same for this other one. I'm just going to take it in the opposite direction. Just drag it over here and put it in the middle of this top brush. And now that we've done that, we're just going to quickly compile lights. Go up here to our compiler tools. And you can see that shadow is mostly gone. Right now it's just the highlight of the sun, and we get like a little bit of a hint of a blue light here, but we've effectively eliminated those bars of light. So I think that already is an improvement. We can also just increase, actually that's part of the reason I'm not seeing any light over here is we didn't actually build the BSP. So let's just build the whole thing. There we go. Yeah, and now we're seeing more of the sunlight filling the space. And to really get an idea of how it's affecting the room, we're going to go ahead and just take this point light and we're going to remove it from the scene for now. Now let's go ahead and compile again. And without that point light in the center, this is how our room looks now. And it looks like it's very naturally lit. I think this is fantastic. And if we go into the game, let's preview it. And just run around and look at our skybox. Yeah, I think maybe the only thing that I would change is I would make the ambient light coming in from the top even brighter. So let's go ahead and do that. Oops, did not mean to forfeit. We just want to exit. So we'll select our spotlights and we'll click on the properties. Why is it only one spotlight? Oh, okay. There we go. Both spotlights. Let's go to our light color and let's increase this by 50%. So 192. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, let's build. And now we have a very naturally lit space, and I think this looks really, really nice. So some of these darker areas, I think what I want to do is I want to add a little light fixture on the back wall of these far corners of the room. And with those light fixtures, I want to add a light corona to each of them so that when you're close, they shine and they have an effect in the camera. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate our big room, and I'm going to recenter it where it is, and then I'm going to go up to our vertex tool, and I'm just going to drag the shape out at the end, and I'm going to make this a 45-degree angle in the corner. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side too. I'm going to duplicate this and center it. I'm going to drag the back end out. Drag the far end here. And now we're going to make our 45-degree angled walls. Now they're not showing up yet because I haven't actually built the geometry. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And you can see that it's preserved the texture alignment by doing it in that method and just leaving the brush there and just dragging the vertices around. It saves the texture position where it is, but it doesn't copy over the light map information. So we're going to need to reset that on all of the surfaces that we've just created at both ends, because you can see the difference between these two shadows. This is very blurry, so this is obviously at the default of 32 pixels for light maps, and this is at the 4 pixels for light maps. So we're going to go ahead and just select all of these faces, and then we're going to right click and go to our light map and set that to 4. And then we're going to recompile. And now our shadows are consistent. Now, I'm kind of a weird perfectionist in that I really like it when textures line up to geometry. And I really want to take this ceiling texture and align it so that these 45-degree angle curves are against the walls here. Not curves, these 45-degree angle struts. So now that I've got this selected, I'm just going to scale this texture, or pan it rather, so that the edges line up with the walls and it feels cohesive. And we're going to leave it like that. So for these backspaces, I think one thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a weapon behind each of them. Now we've got our flak cannon here in the water. We're going to put another weapon over here in the far corner. The far end of the room. We're going to make sure that it is, the bottom of it is coplanar with the floor. Just like that. And we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Just stick that over there. Yeah, I think that looks good. Now we're going to change this weapon to a yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and make it a rocket launcher. And the other weapon, we're going to make this a shock rifle. There we go. And now that we've done that, this is going to create some additional paths for our bots so that they'll want to run around the space more and collect other weapons and just circulate throughout the space. All right, so let's go ahead and add some detail lights. And there's a couple of tricks that we're going to want to do to make some of these effects happen. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to browse for a static mesh asset that we can use as a light fixture. And I'm going to go with the humanoid hardware. And I'm just going to load everything in this package. So I'm going to click on the load everything. And I think this is a good light fixture. We'll go with this. So we're going to put this light up on a wall. We're just going to add static mesh, humanoid hardware, pan light B. And let's go ahead and center this. And you know what? I'm also going to pull in pan light A as well. And we're going to put that back here where our shield is. So we're going to add static mesh. Oh, it's going to face that direction? Okay. That's fine. That's fine. And we'll put it up against the wall over here. Actually, I think that kind of looks good set into the wall like that. We'll just leave it there. We'll come back to that later. Okay, so our big, we're going to move this off to the side real quick. So our light that we have here in the editor, I'll just move this up a little bit. And I'm also going to duplicate it and put it on the other side. So let's duplicate, move this to the other side of the room, and hold down Control and right mouse button to rotate it around. And now we've got our two light fixtures. Well, three light fixtures. Two different meshes of light fixtures. So now we're going to want to place some lights here. And one of the, I think the best way to light this space that makes sense for this light fixture is to use a spotlight. So let's go ahead and duplicate the skylight that we made. Duplicate that and bring it over here to where our light is. And let's look at this in the front view. So we can drag this down. And I really just kind of want the little red point of that arrow to be as close to the static mesh as possible without being actually inside of it, because that's where our light is originating from. And once we're in there, I'm going to Control right click in the front window to tilt the arrow up at a 45-degree angle, because I think that's what the light fixture is facing at. And so I kind of want the spotlight to match that. And then we're going to change the properties of this a bit. we're going to make it, well, first of all, we're going to leave the brightness as is, but we're going to reduce the radius of it a bit. So let's get into our preview here. Actors, radii view. We'll do this for all of our windows. Okay, and we can see that the radius is covering roughly 2/3 of the map, which is a lot of space. But we also need to remember that there is a significant amount of fall off that's going on between the light and the outer edge, where this is going to be fully bright and this outer edge is going to be 0. So the medium amount of light is probably going to be somewhere here, and that's fine. So I don't think we really need to change the radius for this. In fact, we could probably bring it in a little bit. If we go into our lighting, we go to our radius, if we made it 48, and that way it is just covering a little bit of the pool. It can't actually really see it. The line of sight isn't there, but all it really needs to do is fill this space over here and maybe get a little bit of bleed out of these corners if we're lucky. It's not necessary, but that's what we're going to aim for. And then the cone, we're going to narrow this a little bit, and we're going to set it at 192. Actually, let's make it a little bit wider. Let's go 224. I know these numbers kind of seem arbitrary. So we've got our spotlight, and if we compile, we can see that we've got a nice hot spot on the ground. But we're going to need to simulate some bounce light into this area on this wall. So this is where a point light is going to come in handy. So let's go ahead and actually, does that light bulb that I dragged out still exist? Yeah, we'll just use that. Let's bring this over here. Let's put this somewhere over here. Doesn't have to be completely accurate to where the spotlight is, but it helps if it's close. So we're going to put this here. That's about 45 degrees. Actually, it's probably closer to here or closer to here. I think that's what we want. And that's really bright. We obviously don't need it to be that bright, so we're going to set the properties on this to something way more reasonable, like 32. And the hue, because it's sort of a white cool light, we're going to want that color to come through. So let's give this a 192. I think 192 would be a nice cool color. And then the light saturation, we'll pull that down a little bit to 192 as well. And then we'll close this. And also, I think our spotlight might be a little bit too hot, so we're going to change the color on this and the brightness as well. So go into our light color, and we're going to set this to 192, and the saturation to 192, and the brightness, we're going to just drop this down to 128. There we go. And it's looking kind of purple. Maybe we should go 180. Maybe 176, 174, 175. Let's do the same for this. 175. Oh, maybe 170. I don't know. We're trying to get it out of the purple range and closer to the blue range. I think 170 might be right on the threshold. So I think we'll leave it there. So yeah, and then our point light, right now, this radius is really big. It doesn't need to be this big. So we're going to change that radius to 32. And I think we'll go ahead and just lift it up more toward the center so that we can get more bounce on these surfaces here on the ceiling and on the wall. Let's compile. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Now let's go ahead and duplicate these lights on the other side. So right-click both of these and duplicate. Let's rotate them around. It's a really weird angle for them to rotate on. Let's zoom in here and get really, really tight so that we can make sure that that arrow is as straight as possible. And now we're going to drag this over. And in our front view rather, we're going to make sure that that little red arrow is just close enough to that light fixture. Okay. And now for this light, I don't foresee us really wanting or needing to use a spotlight for this. I think just a normal point light up against the wall is going to be fine, because the light traces going sideways across the wall are going to be darker anyway. And what we care more about is just getting that radiance of the light going from light to dark heading out and getting good light contrast from the shadows from this edge here and this edge here. It's really going to help define the space a little bit more. So I'm just going to copy over our fill light that we've been using and duplicate that and drag that over here to our wall light. And let's go ahead and center that a bit on the wall light. I think that's good. You know, I think I also want to bring this mesh out a bit. So let's go down to a small grid like 4. And let's just pull this out so that it's coplanar with the wall. And we can probably drag this up a bit so that the bottom isn't sticking out of the floor. I think that's probably good. Let's get our light bulb up here to match. Let's make sure it's centered on our light here. Now, our radius is okay, maybe a little bit small. I do kind of want some of it to hit the back edge of this wall here, but it's very, very limited amount of light is going to hit this because it's so close to the outer edge. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the radius on this. Lighting. Do I have something else selected? Nothing selected. Lighting properties. Okay, that was weird. So this is a point light. We're going to change the light radius to 48 so that we get a little bit more light hitting the back side of this wall here. We want to see it represented here. And then we're going to go to light color. We're going to keep the color exactly how it is, but we're going to change the brightness here to 64. We'll just have this light really kind of light up this space. And I think we're already seeing it on this wall a little bit. So that's perfect. Let's close this. Let's compile. And yeah, I think this looks pretty good. We could probably even do with pulling the light a little bit further away from the wall. Let's compile that and see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. So now one of the things that we want to do is, because we can kind of see these spotlights from certain areas of the room, we kind of want them to stand out and be shiny. So we're going to go ahead and add some coronas to these. So let's go ahead and select both of our lights. We'll select our spotlights. And we're going to open up our texture browser and click on textures, and we're going to look for a package called Epic Particles. So this one here, and inside here we'll be able to find a bunch of flares. Now this isn't the full list, so if we really want to see all the flares that are available to us, we can just hit the load entire package, and now we have a few more possibilities to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and select this flare here. I think this looks like, color-wise, really close to what our lights are putting out. We could probably also use this one. Actually, let's go ahead and use this one. I think that one's even closer. So we're just going to leave that selected, and I'm going to move this out of the way. And while we've got both of our lights still selected, I'm going to right-click and go into Spotlight Properties. And I'm going to go into Corona. And this is where we're going to set our size for the Corona. And we're just going to set some default values here. So max size is going to be, we'll make it 150. And min Corona size is just going to be 100. Or actually, let's make it 50. And then in display, we'll add the texture that we selected in the skins folder. Actually, we can't do this with both of them selected. So I'm going to close this, and I'm just going to select one spotlight at a time. This is just sort of a weird thing that UnrealEd 3.0 does when you're trying to add specific assets to actors. So we're going to click Use. And you'll notice that we're not really seeing a lens flare here yet. And that's because we need to enable it in the light properties. So we'll go down here to lighting. And on Corona, we're going to set this to true. And now you can see a really cool lens flare on our light. And it fades out whenever it gets blocked by geometry. And you can see that, like, as I get closer to it, it shrinks a little bit to a minimum size. And we can play with that in the Corona settings. So let's say our minimum size is 10 and our maximum size is 500. So right now we're in the range where it's still 10, and if we get as close as possible, it's gonna stay right here at 10. And then the further we get out, the bigger it gets, and then it just sort of disappears. And you might be wondering why that is. The reason it's fading out is because we're outside of the radius of the light. Now if I go into my view here, and you could kind of briefly see where our camera was, that we were still inside the radius of the light, and that's why we can still see it. So if I turn on real-time previews here, as soon as I move my camera out of the light, or out of the radius, and unfortunately we can't see here, so let's go ahead and set ourselves up a way to actually preview our camera. There we go. So my camera is right in the center of the room where the just where the edge of that radius for the spotlight is. And if I move my camera past that threshold into the radius, now you can see the lens flare turning on. So there's a couple of ways that we can fix this. We can either obviously make the radius for this spotlight a lot bigger than it needs to be, or we can just use another point light and set the radius on that to something huge, but we can set the actual light value to 0. And by doing that, it's not going to affect the other lights in our space, but will still allow us to have that lens flare effect. So I'm going to go into Properties, and we'll go into Lighting. We'll turn our corona off, set that to false. And just for being thorough, we'll also go into Display, Skins, and we'll empty that out so we're not referencing it. And we'll go ahead and duplicate our bounce light here. Let's duplicate that. And we'll bring it up to our wall light, right about where our spotlight is. That's good. And we'll go into Properties. Let's set our light brightness to 0. And let's set our radius to 80. And at 80, do I not have radius turned on in here? No, radius is on in here. What's going on? I'm not seeing a radius. Let's try 64. Can we see a radius with 64? No? Is it because the light is set to 0? Does it need to be 1? There we go. Okay. So our light brightness has to be 1. I think I've actually set it to something much less than this. Maybe 0.0. 0.1. That'll work. But even then, we can also set our value. We can just zero those out so that it's just standard white light. And now we'll go ahead and do everything else to set this up as a corona effect. So we'll turn corona to true, and we'll go up here to display, and in skins we'll add and use the texture that we still have selected, and in our corona settings we'll make this 250 and our minimum size 10, or maybe 25. And we'll just leave it like that. And now when we come back, it's going to fade out a little bit sooner because we didn't make our radius large enough. So let's go ahead and set our radius again. Let's see what 80 looks like. Let's go with 96. I think that's probably going to be the best solution for us. We'll probably just do it in even 100. And I think that's going to cover it. I think that'll cover everything. Let's go back up here to our light flare. And let's go ahead and duplicate this and take it over to our other light. Carry this over. Okay, so you're probably looking at this and like, why am I not seeing a corona? Well, it's because it's being blocked by the geometry of this light. One thing we can do to fix that is if we wanted to have a corona inside of an object that is broadcasting and showing how shiny that light is, but we don't want, we want to like get the effect of it being, you know, on the light itself. One thing that we can do is we can change the collision properties of the static mesh, and we can disable the block zero extent traces to false. And when we do that, if I select our lens flare here, and I'll move this out of the way so we can see clearly. With the zero extent traces going through, we can actually move that lens flare inside to the light itself. And the light will still cast shadows, but it won't block the effect of the corona. That's just a handy thing to know. So we can put that effect right there in the middle of the light. And then we can do the same thing on the other side. We'll just select this static mesh, turn zero extent traces to false. And now we can take our lens flare and we can move it inside the light fixture. Let's go preview what that looks like. Oh, that might be a little bit too far in. Let's pull it out a little bit. Okay. I think that's good. Maybe I'll pull it down just a little bit. Yeah, I think that looks okay. I mean, keep in mind, the vast majority of people will probably not get anywhere near this close to it to inspect it. But yeah, we can see our lens flare from all the way back here, even if we go up against the wall, and as soon as we exit the level, it disappears. But yeah, we should be able to see this from practically everywhere in the map now. As long as we can get line of sight to it, it's going to show up. So that's how you can set up lighting to better function and you know, facilitate the needs of your level. We've got our skylights looking a whole lot better. We've got lens effects and flares on our light sources. In fact, we can probably do the same with this light back here. We can duplicate this, or rather, we can just duplicate one that's already set up. We'll just grab this light and duplicate it. Let's move it over here. And let's stick it inside our light fixture. And of course we'll need to set up our light fixture so that it is not blocking zero extent traces. There we go. Let's save and compile and save again. And now let's go ahead and jump into the game, and let's watch some bots play and just spectate and look around. Deathmatch. Tutorial level. We'll go 2 bots. We'll keep it on adept. Actually, let's go with 3 bots. And let's spectate. I think this looks fantastic. The bots are running around and doing a lot of cat and mouse, picking up weapons, using cover. And they are circulating around the map more and picking up items. So I think our map is in really good shape. The only thing left to do now is just sort of expand on this space with maybe a couple more rooms and a couple more things to play around with, like movers. We'll also get into adding sounds and other props to your level, but we're going to save that all for another tutorial. So for now, we're just going to leave it here, and I will see you in the next video.